All right, Bryan Renfro, thank you so much for being on Going Again podcast. I'm stoked that you're here. And I know Randy is stoked.
Yeah, I am stoked. Let's not give him a chance to talk.
Welcome.
Well, thank you.
And you drove up from North Carolina just to see us?
Oh, absolutely.
That's just silly.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, you know, it's been a crazy world. You know, it's you know, I feel like it's a dog eat dog world, and I'm wearing milk bone shorts, and so
we're gonna get to the dog stuff soon enough. That's incredible. This is a good lesson for anyone who doesn't want to come and chat over our table. People ask us all the time, do you do Zoom? Do you do Zoom? No, we don't do Zoom, and we don't do live streaming. We do it over the table, intimate and close.
Yeah. This is, I mean, being in the studio is where it's at. I think people, I mean, for me at least, I don't like watching podcasts that are over Zoom. I mean, what's the point? Yeah, this is way cool.
Anyway, Bryan, thanks for driving up all the way.
Anyway.
My pleasure. I'll send you all the receipts. You know.
Totally. That's awesome. So, Bryan, just for the sake of the viewer and the listener, you're a stuntman, an actor, stunt coordinator, author. For the lack of another term, dog trainer. Unless that's what the term you use. Man,
I am. I mean, I am.
Did you not read your book?
Yes, I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, that's crazy. So, hey, what are you up to? What do you do? So, hey, where did it all start? Where are you from?
Well, I explained that in this autobiography, but it really started probably for me in around 1967. I got arrested. I was in a gang and got arrested for something I didn't do, which was fine because I didn't get arrested for a lot of things I did do.
So kind of evened out?
Yeah, kind of evened out.
Wow.
And after I did my little time, and the same two cops pulled me over the day I got out of jail and told me that I was either going to go to prison or I was going to get killed and to get out of the club. And fortunately for me, there was a little thing called Vietnam going on, and it took me probably 6 months and 3 tries to get in the Army, and that really straightened me out. And
now, why did it take so many tries? Is because you had gone to jail? Did they not?
Yes.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Which was, I thought was really funny because the only thing I had on my record was fighting. There were no drug charges, no robberies, no felonies. It was just fisticuffs and, battery.
It's kind of what you want to have over there.
Well, that's kind of what I thought, but they'd rather take somebody who's burning their draft card.
Yeah, totally. Wow.
So, they finally took me and I basically said I was really intelligent and all that, and they gave me an M16 and threw me in a jungle.
Damn.
Sweet. So they believed you when you said you were intelligent.
Yeah, I was a rocket scientist. I ought to be doing something else.
But the rest of us know you.
Yeah.
So this guy's trying too hard to get in.
Yeah.
That's cool. So we won't mention the gang, but this is a biker thing.
I had a bike. It was more of a car club.
Oh, yeah. They all had cars, but some of them had motorcycles.
Yeah, and it was, it wasn't good. And actually, I have the tattoo on my back of the club.
I was going to ask, yeah.
And
Wow.
I've always kept it. And that is to remind me, never go back.
Oh, that's interesting.
Never go back. And I kind of, I've always had mixed feelings about tearing down statues and everything because we have to
remember our history.
Yes, we can't tear down and forget history. We did things. We have to remember so we don't do them again.
Yeah, 100%.
No, I do wonder, though, if they're tearing down statues now, what did they do 100 years ago? They must have torn down something and erased history then, too.
It's possible.
And who knows? I
Yeah.
mean, and it's funny because it's like, honestly, I didn't have anything to do with a lot of things that you're really upset about. I have nothing to do with it. I was a poor kid. I was in a gang. I went to jail, And after I got out of the Army, I got a job cleaning cages for $50 a week at Universal Studios in the animal show. And I went from there to becoming the head performer and the head trainer.
Of the animal show.
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay. Now, why would you go there to get a job? Is that you just went there to get a job?
No. My uncle ran the show.
Okay.
Going way back when my father was a stuntman in silent comedies.
Okay.
And Sunbeam Comedies in Florida. And from there, he pioneered the dog training thing. He taught Frank Inn, who did Benji, taught Rudd Weatherwax, who did Lassie. They all worked for him in the beginning. And and then my uncle learned also from my father. And then my uncle did the movie The Birds. He did all the birds in the movie The Birds.
Now, is it true that you were on set as a kid of The Birds?
I was on set actually in an Our Gang
Like
thing when I was
Hitchcock
about
birds.
five years old. As my brother and I walked a dog across the, we were extras with a dog.
No kidding.
But I did get to go to the set of The Birds. When it's a scene where the Tippi Hedren is sitting on the bench, and behind her, the ravens start to come in and keep coming in. And so they did that green screen back in the day. And so I got to sit there, got to meet the big guy, Hitchcock.
Alfred Hitchcock.
Hey, we're only one removed from being with Hitchcock.
From Hitchcock, yeah.
It's pretty good.
That is really wild.
Yeah, it was really cool, and I had really no idea what movie business was,
Sure.
nor I really didn't care. And we, my grandmother and grandfather, they had a bigger house, so we had nothing but baby crows and ravens, and having to constantly feed them with syringes and stuff, getting ready for this the movie The Birds.
That's history, man.
So how much of it was real? I mean, there's birds hitting the phone booth, and there's
There's
all
birds
that.
whacking her on the head.
Yeah, there's all kinds of stuff going on.
Yeah, there was a lot of stuff. They obviously now with CGI they can do a whole lot more.
Sure.
Which is kind of a shame because kids are growing up thinking that's what a bear looks like, and it's dancing and having to.
Yeah.
Sorry, but that's not real. But yeah, being not being on the set and not knowing anything, I really don't know. But I know that Hitchcock was so far ahead of what he was doing,
Yeah.
and what people were doing,
Like technology-wise.
Yeah.
So he may have been using something other than a real bird.
Yeah, oh no, they pretty much used. As a matter of fact, my uncle told me that there's a scene where I don't know if it's Tippi Hedren. No, I think it's the other actress. Anyway, he goes into a room and there's a whole bunch of birds.
Suzanne Plachette?
Yes, very good. And so they sent a stunt girl. They filled this room full of birds. And they sent a stunt girl in there, and from what I understand, she wanted out of there right away,
Really?
No shit.
immediately.
Now, why? Why are people afraid of birds?
Well,
They are. Yeah,
when they're
some
trained to
people-
attack you.
Yeah, I suppose.
But
They're little tiny.
But they weren't trying. It's just a whole bunch of birds flying around. But some people get. Now this is a story I heard, and
Right.
it's, who knows? It could be a total lie, but
Let's
I
get
don't
that
think
stunt
so.
woman on the
because-
phone.
Some
and
people
ask
do
her.
have like a fear of birds, though.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
People really fear birds.
Absolutely.
Little
Yeah.
dinosaurs with feathers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess they're like tiny little pterodactyls. I don't know.
Yeah.
And then, of course, I did that and worked at the studio for a long time, and at Universal. I got out of there around 85.
Yeah, but so let's not cut that to the chase. What did you do in the show? Like, what was it? Like, what?
It was the live show was about 15 minutes. We had bird, dogs, cat, and one of the main characters was Fred the cockatoo from the Baretta series.
Okay.
And I performed the show and trained a lot of the animals for the show. And honestly, out of all the things I've done in my entire life, and that includes stunt work and acting and all that, if I could have made a living doing the live animal show, that would have been what I wanted to do. I was
Wow.
very, very good at performing. And even the people in the Black Tower, at Universal gave me, they said I was the best performer there. And I loved it. I loved it, but it paid no money.
Right. Yeah. I can't
Couldn't
imagine.
make a living. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, that's neat.
Wow. Okay. So you go from Universal.
Well, I went from there, and fortunately, Frank Inn, the owner and trainer of Benji, and one of the greatest movie animal trainers ever, he called me one day, and I was pretty down and out at this point. I wasn't making any money, and he said, "We're going to do this movie. It's called Benji the Hunted, and it's all up in the mountains, and I can't physically do it, and I really want you to train and work Benji for this movie." And the reason he wanted to, I had a TV series in 80 and 89 called Here's Boomer. And it was, and I did I trained the dog and did the show, and he was a big fan of that. So he asked me, which was amazing since he had a whole kennel full of trainers. And
Right.
he didn't use any of them.
Yeah,
he
well,
wanted
that's
me to do it.
complimentary, right? That's awesome.
Oh, it's like Spielberg saying, "Hey, I want you to direct my next film." I
Yeah.
mean, this is the
When he
biggest thing there.
When he has anybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I did that, and it worked out really well. The movie wasn't very well received. It just wasn't that good. I mean, it was, just Benji going from here to there. But as far as trainers go, it was very difficult because Benji had to pick up live small baby cougars and carry them up mountains and things. And this is a real cougar.
Dogs don't normally do that?
No. Well, we started them off with just a toy, and then we went to kittens, and then we went to the actual cougars. And most of them were pretty good. Every once in a while, a cougar would, turn around and get in his face. But and the director, Joe Camp, who is an amazing person, just amazing. He created, wrote, directed, produced, and distributed most of the Benjis. I mean, he's brilliant. But when we would do something like the Benji, taking the little cougar up a mountain and going across and going, we didn't angle the camera so it looks like it was high and steep. And one time so what I would do is I would have Benji go up and tell her where to go, and she would find her own path. And at one point she had to jump from one rock to another quite high, And so once she found her own path, I'd bring her back down, and then I'd give her a stuffed kitten toy to do the same path, Okay, we're ready to go. And then, okay, pick it up with a live cougar. And and we had cougar girls who were, oh, that sounds funny, doesn't it? No.
We have cougar, cougar girls.
Yeah.
But the girls that took care of the cougars, we had two of them that were raising the cougars because they grow so fast. We had to have like 6 different litters to keep the babies because they grow real fast. So we had 2 girls who were raising him, and the other girls were helping raising, but also training and then also working the cougars. So they were all out when we're doing this one particular scene, and I set Benji up and okay, do it. So here's the cougar, and when the cougar leaped, or when Benji leaped from one rock to another, she dropped the cougar. And of course the girls are screaming, and so I dove in and caught the cougar, and I could do no wrong after that.
Yeah, man.
Wow.
What would you like?
Stunt safety, man.
Yeah, it was really cool. And then after that, the one great thing that was really cool, we did a U.S. tour for the Benji thing, and we went from city to city. You'd work all day, and then you'd get into the next city about 11, 12 o'clock at night. Get a little bit of sleep. Walk Benji at around 5, and get all ready and then hit all the places that we were going. So we got a lot of sleep in the limo, basically, going around. And then after that, they sent me on a world tour where I went to Holland, Japan, Italy, and I don't know, some other country. I forgot. But that was really interesting. And there's a picture in here I have of Benji and I, in France. And Benji and I did the top show. It was a variety show, the highest rated show in France. And they put me in this massive penthouse. And it's just me and this little dog. And we were bouncing around like BBs in a boxcar. And it was, for me, it was very boring. I didn't need all that, but they put you in there because the press comes in and they do pictures and all that. So they wanted a big elaborate, and it's great to travel with somebody who's a star. You get treated really right.
You get treated the same as they do. You mentioned this. People can't see it. Just pick up your book for a second and show this camera. Hard Work and Dumb Luck by Bryan Renfro. Where can people buy that book?
Amazon.
Amazon. I'm going to put it up on the screen. But that's cool. And I'm going to get you to sign that for me on camera later.
Oh, okay. What's the name?
Yeah, sure. Anyway. So, hey, let me ask you a question. Is Benji the dog is a female?
The original Benji was, you would remember this because you're an old fart like me.
Yeah.
Do you remember Petticoat Junction?
I don't take that from just anybody.
Yeah, he doesn't take it from
I do,
me.
of course, yes. Petticoat. Really?
Higgins was the dog on Petticoat Junction.
Yeah.
And I think his name was actually Dog. I don't think they had a name for him. They just called him Dog. And from there, then Frank and Joe Camp got together and wanted to do this Benji. So I think the first movie was For the Love of Benji, I think. And Higgins did that. And Higgins sired a litter of puppies and passed away. He was much older when he did that movie. The only one that really looked like Benji in the litter was a female.
Okay.
So every other thing up until that Benji passed away, the female was the Benji, but the original one was a male.
Okay, but the female Benji was playing a male Benji in the movie.
Yes.
You can't do that today.
Yeah. Well, Benji would have been canceled.
Right. Come on, man.
No wigging.
You should have known.
Oh, that's incredible.
So then, after that, I got a call to, I was supposed to, actually, Gary Drove, who's the biggest animal training company in the world, Birds and Animals, he called me and said, look, you can either do this movie called Steel Magnolias, or if we're going to do a remake of Rin Tin Tin, Canine Cop, in Toronto, Canada. And you'd be the second trainer on that. But he said, you can do all the dog attacks. And I was like, okay.
As a stunt guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, wicked.
Because I had always wanted to be a stunt guy. And I had done a movie in around 1976 or so. Kent Bateman's father, Jason Bateman's father, Kent Bateman, had written and was directing a movie with Mel Torme as the actor. And I went and worked, my golden eagle was a main character in the show. And as a matter of fact, I used to, Jason and Justine would come up and visit the dad. And that's when I first met Jason Bateman. He was about, I don't know, maybe around 8 or 10 years old, I think. And we got to be really good friends. And I kind of feel bad that, I don't know him anymore and I don't talk to him. But I feel bad that we lost contact because I worked with him. And after that, I worked on a TV series called Valerie that he was in. And he would always call out to me in the parking lot and say, hey, how you doing? Come on, No. And then I worked with him on Little House on the Prairie. He was on that show too. But so after that, I went in and came up on the Cats and Dog TV show.
Yeah, I remember very well. Wow.
Yeah.
It's so cool.
And I got to do all the dog attacks. And then fortunately through Allison Reed and Dwayne McLean, I was able to, and Rick Forsythe, I was able to move from just doing dog attacks to a stunt performer where, you know, stair falls and car hits and fire burns and all that.
Yeah.
So
I was there for a lot of them with you.
What's that?
I was there for a lot of them.
Yeah, I think Eddie hit me with a limousine and took me into you and slammed on a brake, and I went down and took you out.
That's right. That's true. And you drove me once as Darkman. Remember that?
Oh, yeah. And you know, I don't know if you knew this or not, but the guy, you know, because the thing that we were driving was made for railroad tracks and not subway tracks because they're smaller.
Oh, I never thought about that.
And well, I didn't know that either till one of the guys who was the worker, you know, came up and because we were going around corners fast, you know, and he came up to me and he said, "Look, you know, you got to be careful about going around corners like that because this vehicle is not made for these tracks." And I relayed that to the powers to be, and basically said, "Yeah, okay, just keep going fast." Well,
and I'm standing on top.
and you're standing. Oh, and I don't know if you remember this or not, but we were down there for, you know, until 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, way down in the subways. And I was in this cage in this pickup truck, and you're on top, and I'm getting all the fumes and everything, and it's hot down there. It's summertime.
I do know this.
And there was a scene where the actors are walking, and I guess they're after us, or so I don't know what. And they're walking like through an area that's going to come to the tracks. And when they get to this one beam of light, that's when I go. So I'm, you know, it's like 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. I'm hot and I'm getting all these fumes, and I'm, you know, I'm doing everything I can to stay awake. And I didn't hear them say rehearsal. So I see these actors hit this beam of light, and I step on it. And these people are jumping. Oh, God, what are you doing? What are you doing? And I was like, oh, yeah, sorry.
That's hilarious.
We've all screwed up a little bit once in a while.
We have.
Oh, that's funny.
That's hilarious.
So Cats and Dogs, which brought you here. What was I going to say? Damn it. I lose track of thought. There's too many things going on through here.
Well, now you're in Toronto. So what happened after that? Did you stay in Toronto?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I stayed up until I think a little after SARS hit. Well, actually, I got in around 2010. A company called me in Panama City Beach, Florida, and they had a marine animal park, and they had a bird show in there, and the bird show needed some work, and they really didn't have any trainers, so they asked me to come down there and see what I could do with the birds.
Here, I have questions. I'm sure that anyone watching this or listening, they also have questions. How the hell do you train
from a dog to a bird?
No. Well, the guy's gifted. It's obvious. But how do you train a behavior in a bird?
Do you know how to train the behavior in a dog, other than sit and lie down?
Well, not
Like,
the
to
behavior.
me,
Just
like-
a second.
All I'm saying,
The dog loves you. He licks you, and he looks in your eyes, and you talk to him.
I suppose that's true.
Try doing that to a bird.
Well, it depends on what kind of bird you're
Take a
talking about.
freaking bird.
If you're talking citizen birds, parrots and things, they're highly intelligent.
Who?
Citizens, like parrots
They're
and cockatoos.
citizens.
Not citizens, citizen.
I've never heard the term.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's I didn't make it up. I mean, it's
I'm sure you did.
You sound like you're making shit up. Right?
might be in here somewhere. And so they're highly intelligent.
Yeah.
And while we're on the topic of birds, when I was doing the Baretta series, you guys would love this. I went into work, and the director wanted me to go into the set where they have a bar and pool tables, and asked me to teach the bird to roll a ball into the pockets. So, you know, the cockatoo's highly intelligent. It took me about 5 minutes. But
Really?
yeah, oh yeah, it took me no time at all. But
Crazy.
I was the first AD, or one of the ADs, introduced me to the person who was playing the bartender. And he was about 80 years old, a little older than that. And he said, "Hi, this is Bryan Renfro. I'd like you to meet Harvey Perry."
Oh, wow.
I'm not sure I know who Harvey Perry is.
A legend stuntman. He was
Oh.
the one who doubled Harold Lloyd when Harold Lloyd did not have a double. When
Okay.
the hanging off the clock and all that,
Yeah.
that was Harvey Perry.
Really?
And
Okay.
Harvey Perry was rolling cars over into his 90s, I think.
And he was not allowed to
Wow.
divulge anything about Harold Lloyd until Harold Lloyd passed away. Now, and this is, and I felt so bad because I was an animal trainer, not a stuntman yet. And I didn't know the value of
meeting
who
Harvey
I
Perry.
had met.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, yeah.
And I
Okay.
felt so bad about that, you know.
Wow. Man, that's cool.
You can't even teach a stuntman to roll a ball into the corner in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
So what is the process though? Like, what is the process? You put the ball down, put the bird down, say roll that in that hole.
No. Well, first of all, in training, once an animal, say like a dog or a bird, once they learn how to learn, and then they understand more on what you are showing them. So, for instance, the cockatoo had already known like 1 million behaviors and had already learned how to learn. So all I had to do was put the ball down there, put the cockatoo down there, and just let him touch it, pay him. Soon as he gets paid for touching that ball, he's pushing it.
No shit.
Yeah, and so I pay him for that, and then what you do is say, the hole is here. Well, you start with the ball right there. Boom. He just nudges it, goes right in the good guy, right? Click, 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 pay, you know, and move the ball back a little bit. And if he does miss it, which is great, you want your dog to mess up or your bird to mess up.
So you can correct it.
Excuse me. But yes, exactly. Because if they're constantly doing the right thing, they don't really know. But when they mess up and then do it right, aha. Okay, that's what.
There's a
So
correlation.
yeah, and it, you know, like I say, it took no time at all. Once I moved it back a little bit, I got to do a scene, and we never shot this, but I got to train this. At the end of the Baretta shows, there was always a pretty girl coming over. It was always kind of the tag thing, right? So we had planned this. The cockatoo, Baretta calls the cockatoo. So he picks up the phone and says, hello. And then you get the other side of the conversation. And he's saying, hey, I have a girl coming over, get things ready. So in succession, I taught him, well, he had already knew how to answer the phone. So I had him answer the phone. And from there, he takes, you know, the very long stick matches.
Yeah.
I had a thing that he could light it on. Excuse me. So he learned to take the match, strike it, hold it, light the candle, put it down in the ashtray, and then from there, after lighting the candle, he goes over, pulls a cork out of a bottle, and then from there he goes into the. We had a small ice chest, kind of like portable ice chest. He pushes it up, gets in there, and then the last thing is he just pops his head up and peeks out, right?
What?
This is all in one shot?
Oh, yeah. And they didn't let us shoot it.
Aw.
I know.
Now, if the match doesn't light, does the bird understand that it didn't light and then tries to light it again?
Yeah. Because
What
that
the
happens in
fuck?
training. You know, it's okay. It didn't light. You didn't get paid. You didn't get. And they're so smart. I mean, you know, and this cockatoo was so much smarter than a lot of the birds. I mean, you know, he was just just amazing.
That was one of my favorite shows years ago, Baretta, and I can't wait to get on the internet and revisit this. I want to see some stuff.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Now, I mean, there must be like for me, I'm thinking like a dog trainer, okay, and then a bird trainer, okay, but somehow you're doing all of it. Is it because all animals have a same something, or is it two completely different practices?
Well, training is training.
Okay.
Guide the animal into a behavior, reward them for it.
Right. Okay.
Okay, so I was fortunate in working at Universal Studios because we had a variety of animals. So I got to, as a matter of fact, the very first, and I got pictures in here, the very first animal I ever trained, I was just still cleaning cages, and I said, gee, I was watching other trainers, and I said, I'd like to train something. And my uncle said, well, you can work with that bird that's a green-winged macaw. Oh, okay. What's his name? Tuffy. Why do they call him Tuffy? Because he eats nobody will work with him. He just bites everybody.
This is tough.
I trained that bird to do everything birds do. I mean, he would ride a bicycle, skates, scooter, pick up a diamond, put it into a coffee can, and then look in it to make sure it's there.
Just train him to play for Manchester United.
How big a bird is that?
Make a lot of money.
How big a bird is this?
Well, I mean, with a tail, they're like this.
Oh, wow.
It's a big parrot. It's one of the only other bigger parrot is still a macaw, but that's a hyacinth macaw. That's the all solid blue ones. They're half again the size or more than a macaw parrot. But a macaw parrot's pretty big. And in the day when we used to get birds, they weren't hand raising birds in these days. It was birds were caught in the wild as adults,
right?
Grabbed and put into a shipping container, shipped to America, and put into quarantine. And whatever birds made it out of quarantine were sold. And we used to call those bronc macaws. And they are wild. And when they bite you,
they mean it.
Oh man, I mean, they can snap a broom handle if they want to. But the good thing about what I found out about once they started hand raising birds, and they're very nice and very sweet and everything, but the wild ones had been through so much that they weren't afraid of anything.
Why would they be? Why would they be?
A lot of the hand-raised birds have done it and done nothing but, force feed or give him food and, just play around and be loved and everything. And I discovered a lot of them in training some of those. They're afraid of a lot of things.
They're like A-listers.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
I get it. Wow, that's really interesting.
No, that's fascinating.
Now, is it the same as? I mean, could you train a gorilla or a bear or?
Well, yeah, a lot of people do. I worked with chimps, never trained one, but I had an orangutan that I trained. I had never done that before. That was really interesting. And a little story. I have a really nice picture of Michael Lennon and I with my orangutan. I had gone to, a lot of times you take animals to a film set that aren't working, but they're in training when you're working something else. That way they get to see the lights, cameras, dollies, and all the confusion that a film set has. So we were working in Simi Valley and where, they had the town of Walnut Grove built. And I was parked quite a ways away, and I had Strawberry, which was the orangutan's name, and I was working her, and letting her see all the stuff and everything. And Michael came up to me and said, "Hey, can I see your orang?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." So I started working the orang and everything, and he says, "This is just a great person." He says, "I've got one more script to write for this season. I want to put the orang in it." I said, oh, "Okay, cool." And he called me up at Universal about 2 weeks later, and said, "Can you come down and get the script?" And I went down. It was For the Love of Blanche was the name of it, and the orangutan is pretty much the whole show. And I was like, whoa! So I took like 2 weeks of doing nothing but training.
How does a orangutan fit into Little House on the Prairie?
There's it was a very interesting story. The Victor French, his character, was traveling back to Walnut Grove, and he meets up with an old guy in a covered wagon, and they build a fire together, and they're out somewhere, and then they have some food and everything, and the old guy is talking about Blanche. Well, Victor French he thinks this is
His
a
wife.
little girl, right?
Oh, yeah.
So in the morning, the old man has died. And he's like, "Oh, what am I going to do with this little girl?" And oh man! And so he goes in there in the covered wagon to see this little girl, and she's covered up. And what it is when he's like, "Hello, are you in it?" And the orangutan goes, and then of course he's like shocked. So he takes the orangutan back to Walnut Grove, which causes
I bet.
a shitstorm. I mean, he destroys his house, and I had the greatest time doing this. Michael said the scene is he's left alone, and he's going to destroy the house. And I said, okay, so I know what I'm going to do. I had him make or bring in like a big, not a book, kind of like a bookcase, but it's got all the, on the shelves are foods and flour and things like that. So what I did is I in prepping, I took a little can and pulled the top off and put a bite of banana in there, put it and let her grab it. And she pulled it off right away and got the banana. And then I put it on another shelf, and she found that and did that. So when we went to do the scene, I put her up so she couldn't see what I was doing, and I hid something much further up. But I had all kinds of other things with flour and things and stuff, and I knew, and also a bottle that would look like whiskey, and it was I think it was juice or tea or something. And so I knew this was good, and sure enough, I let her go, when they're rolling. Oh, okay, and I didn't say anything, just let her go. And she goes over, the first thing she finds is this bottle, and she goes, takes the cork, and then pours it in something, drops it, and she's climbing up, and she's pulling over things with flour in it, and it's all over, and it's just, and so after this scene, when they cut to Victor French coming home, and the orangutan is sitting there on the table with stuff all over, and the place is a mess,
And then there's a fight scene between Victor and the orangutan.
No, but I'll tell you what, and you guys know, you've been in the film business for a long time. You don't see, Michael Landon was executive producer, writer, director, and actor. And I mean, that's a lot to do. He came to me, and you don't get this. He comes to me as a trainer and says, "Hey, Bryan, the show's running late or running short. So can you do something in Victor's bedroom, something kind of cool or fun or whatever?" So I went into that set, and there's the bed that Victor sleeps in, and another bed over here that the orangutan is going to be in. And in the middle was like a sawhorse with a saddle on it. So I started thinking, so I put the orangutan on the saddle, and I had her pick up the reins, and right away, you show her something, and she's going to start messing with things. And if it's good, you're like, yeah, that's great. So what happens is in the scene, and I put all this together, and I showed Michael, and it was the orangutan gets out of bed in the middle of the night and gets up in the saddle, and he, doing all this, and Victor French is like, "Blanche, be quiet and go to bed," and he keeps doing it. And so, "No, go to bed." And he the orangutan gets down, gets under the covers, pulls the cover over, and then he does the raspberry, and then Victor French does the raspberry, and then he does it back to him. And I showed that to Michael, and he loved it, and he put it in the show.
Sweet. And what's the title of this episode?
For the Love of Blanche.
For the Love of Blanche, just in case anyone wants to look it up. Yeah,
Blanche.
what did I say?
Yeah, and
Branch? I don't know.
Blanche, yeah. And honestly, how many people like of that stature
Yeah, totally.
would allow an animal trainer to come up with a scene like it and shoot it and
They
leave it?
trusted you.
Yeah,
They
that's what
saw
I was
the
just
work
gonna
that
say.
you were doing, and they were
Yeah,
like,
Yeah.
you've worked for him for a
Clearly,
long time.
yeah.
So that's,
Yeah.
wow.
that's fabulous.
I've never met anyone in the film business who was I respected more than Michael Landon. He was just, and you got to remember when he was doing the show at this time, westerns were taboo. They weren't shooting them anymore. He had a western that was in the top 10.
yeah.
I mean, he was brilliant.
Yeah. He had a second Western in the top
Well, and
10.
that show is still,
Bonanza.
the show's still massive. I mean,
Oh yeah,
It is,
know?
yeah, sure.
people
It'll play forever. It's
yeah.
nowadays. People, I've when people know what I've done and know that I've had mothers come up to me and say, you know, we bought the whole DVD collection of Little House because that's what I want to raise my kids on. I don't want them to watch what's going on TV, you know. So they're still doing that. I mean, it was, you know, and you know, I'll tell you what was so cool about Michael Landon's series, Little House. One episode could be kids playing with a fire, burn down a house and kill somebody. The next episode is a comedy. Not like everything you see now, you know
yeah.
what's going to happen.
That's true.
Yeah.
It was totally different.
Interesting.
That was the beauty of the 80s and the 90s, actually. They were all about laughs and cries. You know?
Mix it up.
Yeah, they mixed
Yeah.
it up, and they did it really nicely. They did it like tastefully.
Yeah, not you know, I mean, there's so much CGI now. I mean, you go to watch an action movie and it's half
not
of it's a cartoon.
Yeah, it's a cartoon.
Yeah, and
Exactly.
in the old days when, you know, we do a car hit, we get hit by a car, and nowadays, you know,
There's wires and
yeah, so any actor can be pulled here and there, and then they marry it to some car stuff, and you know, wow, you know, but
true enough.
Yeah. Yeah.
what's the matter?
Oh, the cartoon thing. No, it's funny because, like, you know, a few podcasts now we've mentioned like Marvel,
Yeah.
and you know,
We weren't going to mention this one, but you brought it up. Go on.
well, but it is another one of those things. It's all green screen, and it's not actually.
Real.
Yeah, it's not like.
Well, very little of it is.
No, and we know that. The younger people don't know
You
that.
know, that's
they
true.
think
They're
this
being
is
raised
it.
on-
You know,
that's true.
oh well, this is real. I saw this. You know,
Yeah,
no, it's not real.
Yeah.
You know,
but they also watch reality TV now and think that that's real, and even that shit's not.
It's all
real.
scripted, folks.
Silly
yeah,
stuff.
yeah. You know, cops and live PD are about the really only real
Yeah.
shows like that where things really do happen.
Right.
Yeah,
and even
yeah.
and even that will be edited for
Oh, it is now.
content and
It is now.
creativity.
Totally.
And I was watching, I'm a big fan of, I started watching Cops when I first started, you know, 20, 30 years or whatever it was. And Live PD, I watch that now.
He's just seeing if he's on it.
What?
Yeah.
You just wanted to see if you were on the show.
Yeah.
No,
There's my episode.
no, but I wanted to see if my brother was. No, I'm kidding. But I'm watching this thing, and it's they come to something, and someone shot, and he's dead, and this is live, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
They cut away from it right away and say, "Oh, this is very sensitive. We do." Hello, people need to know things happen.
Yeah, man.
Which
You
is funny
can't
because
hide from things. You got to know.
yeah, they'll show it on CNN. Or they'll show
Well, they
it on.
won't.
No, it's
They won't. They'll say it's too sensitive.
yeah, it's,
Oh,
it's
really?
too
Oh, yeah.
sensitive.
Oh,
You know, people, you know, you can't. I mean, look at us. You know, especially you and I. We grew up eating mud and doing things and never washing our hands and falling off of things and stuff. You know, we survived.
Okay, so speaking
That's
of you
disgusting.
and Speaking of, yeah.
Uh-oh.
In the 60s, I grew up, we're a few years apart, not many, but a few. I grew up watching the Vietnam War in my living room.
Yeah. First
So,
televised
Absolutely. Absolutely. When you watched a newsreel, it was live and in color, and I think I had a black and white TV.
Now before you go on, I just want to mention that I am way younger than you guys.
Yeah, you don't remember the 60s?
No.
70s?
No.
Right.
Sorry, I just wanted to let
Just
let
half
you
the
guys
80s.
know. Just kidding. Sorry. Go ahead.
But when I would go home at lunch from school in the 1960s, they would be showing newsreels of Vietnam and soldiers being shot and bullets and bombs going off on television. And now they don't show you that much anymore. Like it's too sensitive. That's
Yeah.
what we're talking about, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, Brian, if we can leave the film industry for a moment, and you mentioned earlier that you tried several times over a period of 6 months to become a soldier to join the U.S. Army.
Mm-hmm.
Can we talk about that? You joined the Army, and then what did you do? Where'd you
Well,
go?
first of all, me and a friend of mine, another member of our organization, he went down and I enlisted in the Army Airborne. They took him and said no to me. So I volunteered at that point for the draft. And in the meantime, my best buddy, Jim, that I talk a lot about, we did a lot of adventures and stuff. He was working for a company, and he got me in there on his crew, and we had blown away everybody, the two of us, making more product and than anybody had. It was really, really good. And then I got my draft notice about 6 months after I'd been working there. So, by this time, everybody in the company, and everybody's really friendly, and they gave me a big going away party. And I, you got on a city bus to go down to the induction center, and I had 9 joints with me in my pocket. And I got on the bus and went down there and fought my way through the people burning the draft cards and all that, and went into the induction center. And before I went in there, I took the 9 joints out of my pocket and threw them in a trash can right there on one of the main streets in downtown LA. I'm done with this. I'm going in the Army. And I got it, and I passed all the, the hearing and eye thing is like, hey, buddy, and if you turn around and look at him, okay, you passed the hearing and eye. So, and at the very end, a guy came up to me and said, yeah, we're not going to take you. I had just quit my job, had a going away party.
Crushed 9
Toss
joints.
9 fucking joints away.
Oh, I found every single one of them. I got on a city bus and I lit one up on the bus and I said, you know what? Fuck you people.
Wow.
I'm trying to do the right thing. You don't want me? Fuck you. And then a few months later, they sent me another draft card and they took me this time.
Okay.
I was like, well, I don't want to go now.
I smoked 9 joints. That's hilarious.
And I went into basic and then AIT and
What's AIT?
Advanced Infantry Training.
Okay.
And then they shipped my ass over to the jungle.
And what year would that be?
I went there in November 68 and left November 69.
So you're there for a year.
365 miserable days.
Is that normal? That's the run that they?
Yeah, a lot of people, more often than not, you get an R&R, rest and relaxation, and they send you to Australia or wherever you want to go for that week, and then they would give leaves and stuff. I never got that because when I was when Nixon pulled out the 9th Division, I was in the 9th Division, so all orders came down canceled. I didn't get to go on any R&Rs and leave, and they wanted to take me. They were taking all the 9th Division back to Hawaii, so your wife could come over, and we were playing Army and all that. And I did not want to do that. I'm all for, keeping my rifle clean, but I don't want to spit shine my shoes and salute. So I volunteered to stay in Vietnam. So I stayed there for the whole 365 days.
Wow. Were you working all the way around the clock?
Working? No. Well, we were on troop ships. So what we would do is these crummy old World War II troop ships is where we stayed. And we would go, they would either helicopter us out or send us by tango boat, the smaller boats with the big ramp. We would spend 3 days in the jungle and then come back for 24 hours and then back 3 days in the jungle and then 24 hours off. That's the way it went. And it was, there's my legs, and I have a story in here where I talk about how bad my legs were. The jungle rot and immersion foot, it got so bad that what happens is when the little red and green bees start flying in at you, because they used a lot of incinerator rounds, so which really scares you. And,
Like tracer rounds.
Yeah, and I call them bees,
Right.
And when they start coming in at you, and it's a jungle. You can't tell where they're coming from. You can't see a shooter. It's not like you can shoot back.
They're just coming through leaves and
and so you get in, you jump into anything and everything to get out of the way of these little bees. So you don't want to get hit in the face with them, right? And a lot of times in the jungle, little hooches and things, they would have a big hole, and that's where they threw the trash in and defecated and all that stuff. Well, when the bullets are flying, you get in their face first. You're not worried about the smell. You're not worried about anything. What happens is at that point, I started getting ringworm. And then the ringworm turned to staph infection. And at the same time, because the Army and in their great thinking, had us in big wool socks instead of like nylon socks. So for 3 days, your feet are completely soaked because you're going in and out of water and canals and all this stuff. And the combination of the ringworm turning into staph infections, and I still got a lot of scars on my leg, they turn these big holes, and it's just open, pussy things that come out. And with the immersion foot, what it does is it takes off the top layer of your foot, but they're wet, so you don't know. It's and you're not taking your shoes off at night. And
Wow.
what would happen is when you get back off a mission, you could take a shower, and I would get into the shower, take the shower, and on the way back to my bunk, because your feet are now dry, my feet where the skin had gone were purple, and every time you'd take a step, it would crack and bleed, and the holes in my leg, pus would be running out. And this is happening as you're 24 hours off and you're going back in the jungle. And so you get to your bunk and write a letter, do whatever you do. And I lived on basically Darvons. The medic would bring a big jar of Darvons, and that was the only way you could get around.
And nothing heals because you have to put socks back on and go back into that water.
Yeah, and get back in. Yeah.
Wow.
Was it like this the whole year that you were sort of doing this?
No, not for most of it. And then when I think I had probably 2 or 3 months left, when Nixon pulled out the 9th Division and I volunteered to stay. And we were in a place called Dong Tam, which was the furthest base south of Saigon. And it was huge. I mean, just huge. It was the whole 9th Division was there and all kinds of other things. And they had a big PX. So one of the companies was staying there. I think they were an engineer company. And they were staying there. So because I didn't want to go back to the States, they said, okay, well, since you're a sergeant, we're gonna make this PX a lot smaller just for this one company, and you'll be the manager of it. Okay, I didn't know anything. And
Wow.
and this we got mortared and rocketed every single night. They would send mortars and stuff in on us every night. So it's, and after a while, honestly, I just, I started drinking too much. I'd take a bottle of scotch out of the, and I wouldn't even get into the bunker. I was just, fuck it, whatever,
No
Oh,
shit, eh?
yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah. And that was one of the bad things about being in the jungle, because you didn't get hit all the time. So sometimes you get complacent, and then pow, boom, whatever, and followed by medic. Somebody screaming medic. So
I can imagine. Wow.
and what happens is when you get back, because you're in war, and in Vietnam you're in war and then you're not in war. And then you're in war and then you're not in war. And a lot of people, when they got back, their mind went, okay, I'm in war. But they're not, they're at home. But they think they're, doing something maybe they shouldn't be doing or something. They're like in the war, and then they come back. So a lot of people had that kind of an issue. And it was, we used to talk about when you get home and how cool it's going to be and oh, wow, and everything. And I got home and it was not cool. It was awful. It was the life I was going on. My mother had been run over by a car. My stepdad had been killed. And the, marriage wasn't going well. So it was when I got back home, it just wasn't a whole lot better.
Wow.
Than what it was.
Wow.
And there's a little story in here where I'm talking about getting shot at or something. And I remember, you ever had like a nightmare where you're, and it really scares the shit out of you. And then you wake up at night and you go, oh, okay, everything's good. And it takes a while to come down from that nightmare. And I'll never forget having a nightmare over there. And it was like a big giant devil kind of huge dog. It was chasing me around a tree, and I'll never forget it. And it was going faster and faster and faster. And I was screaming in my head. I don't make noise, but I was like screaming. And I woke up and I went, oh, it's just a nightmare. And then I realized I was on a 3-man patrol, and reality was scarier than the nightmare.
Wow.
Wow. Holy fuck.
Yeah.
What am I hearing?
You hear that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you guys talk amongst
Weird.
yourselves?
Okay. What's with all this stuff we're hearing?
I have no idea.
Somebody's on a long flush.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow, that is it's incredibly wild. How often were bullets coming at you?
You could be out for 3 days and nothing would happen. And the next day or the next after 24 hours, the next 3 day, boom, right away, you're getting shot at. And there was a time when, and a lot of times the Viet Cong would kind of know where you are.
Sure.
So they would shoot in. They would just, because I think they were using like every 3 bullets were a tracer. And it's psychologically, when you see that coming at you, it scares you. So they wanted you to shoot back. That way they knew exactly where you were.
Yeah, they're trying to get some
That makes
movement
sense.
or something.
Yeah, for mortars, because they big time mortars, right? So a lot of times you wouldn't shoot back. And I was smoking in the day when I was there in Vietnam. I mean, you weren't really worried about getting cancer. You were more worried about getting lead.
Yeah, totally.
No doubt.
And I'll never forget. I was lying on my back, and the AKs were lit up, and they were shooting at us. And I remember lying on my back, watching the leaves of the trees were right about this far from my face, and they were getting hit and coming down. And I will never forget. I lit up a Lucky Strike. And it was the greatest tasting cigarette I ever had in my entire life. I was terrified. I was scared. I couldn't get up. If I got up, I'm dead. You can't move. Is the Viet Cong coming in on us? Are they just testing us? Are they, am I going to mortared? Or am I going to hear a grenade hit the ground? And, so you just lie there. And I was smoking that Lucky Strike, and I will never forget how good that tasted.
Now, is that because it felt like the last cigarette of your life?
No, I didn't think I was going to die, but I was terrified that, I was going to get hit.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
The only time I ever really thought I was going to die was doing a stunt, sinking a bus.
Oh, wow.
But not in Vietnam. I tried. You try to keep that away from your head. One time we were going to the mission was, okay, there's a 500-pound bomb that we have to find. It's in the jungle because they had spotted it from an aircraft, and the Viet Cong were very, very, very good fighters. They had been fighting forever. They knew how to make booby traps, and I was in point squad, and all I could think of was a booby trap, 500-pound bomb. I'll never hear it.
Wow.
And what it was a black sand pan that had been turned upside down, and it looked like a bomb. They're little boats. They call them sand pans. They're really small. It was painted black, and that when they spotted it from the air, and I was so happy to know that wasn't a bomb.
Wow.
I can only imagine. Tell Andrew the story about being on pay duty. Like when it was your duty to pay the guys, you had to go get the money.
Oh, that yeah. When I was manager of the PX, a couple of Filipino officers came in, and they wanted cigarettes. So I didn't give them cigarettes. So I never stole anything from the PX as far as that goes. But what I did was I sold them cases of cigarettes at cost, at what we cost, And since there was nobody there, I mean, they had more than enough cigarettes to supply the little amount of people that were still in Dogtown. And they said if I ever needed a ride somewhere, they had a helicopter, So at one point, my lieutenant, the guy with the little gold thing on his shoulder next to the big giant chip.
Yeah.
What a prick. He didn't like me because I was a decorated combat soldier, and he was just out of ROTC or some fucking thing. I don't know. He just didn't like me. He was straight laced and never had to smile, and So I have to take $29,000 of military money, take it to Saigon, and change it into piastres, which was the local currency, bring that back, and that is to pay the local people that worked in the PX. So I got a hold of my friends with the helicopter, and I had a little 45 under my blouse, so I wasn't supposed to take it to Saigon, but I wasn't about to be unarmed,
Yeah.
And I had a paper sack of the money. Now, so I never told anybody, the pilots or anything like that. So we get into this. They come to pick me up at some place there in Dogtown, and I get into this helicopter, and it's plush, not like what I used to ride in with no doors and a bench seat. I mean, this thing was plush, right? I'm going, wow, this is really cool. So we take off, and we're heading to Saigon. Now, Saigon is like 65 miles from Dogtown, and it's a pretty big little town,
Yeah.
So a little while after we're in the air, they're looking at each other and like they don't know where they're going, right? They don't know. So there was a little outpost, a U.S. outpost that was all tents. So they decided to land there and get directions from this outpost. Do you know what a helicopter does to tents?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, So we're coming down, and I'm watching all this, and guys are running out of tents and trying to hold them down instead. And I'm just kind of sliding back down on the seat. I don't want to,
I'm not here.
Yeah, really. And the captain, the commanding officer is the captain. Well, he comes running out and button up his fatigues and shit, and he's like thinking that, the president or somebody has landed there, And then he comes up to realizes there's 2 Filipino officers and they're trying to get directions to Saigon. Oh, he was upset. Really pissed. And I'm really hiding in the back seat of this thing. So, okay, we take off and they're going to come and get me tomorrow. So I go to the military bank, tell them what I need. They take the sack of money and they tell me to come back tomorrow. Now, I don't know where I slept or where I hung out at that night. So I come back in the morning, raining like hell. And so I get my bag of cash, piasters, get in the helicopter, we take off, and the ceiling is probably 500 feet, and it's just pouring rain. And we're flying through the jungle. Now, the Viet Cong loves nothing more than to shoot down a helicopter. I mean, that makes their day, And we're flying around, and they don't know where Dong Tam is, and there's no place to land. Now, I know we're close, and I just felt it. And I said, put me down. And they put me down on a rice paddy. And I felt I would be safer on the ground by myself than flying around with these 2 idiots.
With your pistol.
Yeah. So I'm in now. When this helicopter takes off, and the pitter patter of rain in a rice paddy, and since there's in a rice paddy, there's no fucking place to hide. There's no place to go. I'm sitting there or squatting there, and all of a sudden the helicopter's gone. It's so quiet, and you're like, I have never felt that alone in my entire life. And I'm like, okay, I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to do. Now, between that piece of jungle and Dong Tam, there was a road called Ambush Alley, and it was for a good reason, because so I'm sitting there and wondering what I'm going to do, and then I hear a motorized vehicle. I grab my little 45, and which was really funny because I couldn't hit a fucking thing with that 45 in training. So, but it made me feel better, and I'm aiming this gun at where I hear the sound, and I'm watching the road, and it's a U.S. Jeep, a little World War II U.S. Jeep. Oh, right. So I'm running, and I'm waving to him, and I'm waving a gun, and I forget that I'm waving, and I'm like, fuck, they could have shot me, And they stopped and, what the fuck are you doing out here? Well, I didn't want to tell them I had a sack full of cash. And, it was too bad I couldn't come up with anything witty like, well, I was walking my leash in the, so I get in the Jeep and we make it back to the PX and the lieutenant takes the bag, and I'm dripping wet, and he takes the bag and walks off. Never said thank you. Nothing. Now, I didn't want a medal for it or anything, but a nice thank you would have been cool.
That's unreal, though, man. Oh my God.
Yeah. It's crazy.
What a prick. But anyway.
What you were doing at the time? Do you ever look back and go, okay, yeah, that is what we were doing, or was it different? Did you find out that I don't know.
I don't, hindsight is, you always, it's like a lot of the chapters I write, like one of them was Snake and a Convict, or I really got to start thinking things through. And what the chapter on that, the 45 and the bag of money in it was called 45 and a sack of cash, I think, or I really have to think things through. And you don't, I didn't realize a lot of these things until I started writing the book. And I would be in a coffee shop, and I've got my computer and I'm writing a Vietnam story, and I'm fucking crying. And I'm like, is anybody looking at me?
Oh,
You know,
wow.
and you know, I'd go on with the thing, but I didn't realize some of the really dumb shit I had done, and sneaked away with it. You know, got, you know, everything was like when I was in jail, there was this really big guy that I was working out with, him and another guy, and back in the '60s, it was a bit racial tension, you know, back then, and I wanted to work out. I was like 138 pounds, and I wanted to get bigger, you know. So the only two guys working out were two black guys. So, you know, I got no problem with that. Can I work out with you, you know, and stuff? So they let me in. They taught me how to, you know, bench press and do all that stuff. And then one night, all the white guys surrounded my bunk and said, "No, you can't be. They're black, you know."
Wow.
Oh yeah, no, and this is the '60s, you know, and I was like, "Well, I don't see anything wrong with it, but you know, I mean, I don't want somebody coming up and cutting my throat because I'm working out with you." I said, "Well, why don't you guys start working out?" So they all started working out, and I worked out with them. So this one big guy that I used to work out with was, you know, he wasn't the sharpest pencil in the drawer, and we're on a road gang. You know, working on the road, doing something, I don't know. And I found, you know, and I've always been into animals, and I see a king snake, so I grab him, you know. And I went up to this gentleman, and I said, "Hey, I got something for you." And I held up the snake. Well, he fucking took off, running down the road. And of course, the guards are like, you know. I'm laughing my ass off. At the same time, I think, oh, they're fucking shoot him, you know. And all the time he's running, Renfro, I'm gonna fucking kill you. I'm gonna fucking. He didn't, but you
It's
know.
a great story, though. Can you see that?
Yeah.
I get out there on the road crew, and he's running away, and the coppers have no idea why he's running, and you got a snake.
Yeah, yeah, and you know, it's like, you know, you just can't do things like that, man. You got to, you know. It's like holding your hand over a fire and go, "Ow, that hurt." Gee, that was stupid. What, you know?
Yeah.
But it was so pretty.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
It is.
So anyway, that was, you know, I did my little bit of time and got out of jail. And for me, going to jail was a really good thing that happened to me. One of the best things that ever happened to me in my life, because I got me out of the gang. And I realized that I don't like being locked up, and I ain't going to get locked up again. And I'm not going to do something to get locked up again.
Right.
You know, and so that really helped me a lot. And I guess a lot of people don't. A lot of people would say, "Well, you got arrested and you didn't do anything," and all, you know. And well, hey, it for the large part really helped me. And I when I went to see, I was on probation when the two cops arrested me, and this is really funny. My brother, who was on leave from the Army, and a buddy of mine and I had a really nice chopper. It was built by one of the Galpagooses. It was an original Harley Davidson knucklehead motor, you know, 4 on the side, suicide shift. And
Wow,
everything.
cool.
Oh, it was my love. I mean, my love. So we were down at go-karts.
Is that the picture?
Yeah, there's a picture in there of it. Yeah.
You send me that picture. I'll put it up.
Oh, okay. Yeah, and so we had gone to the go-kart track, and this is on a Sunday morning, and we're completely sober. I mean, back in the '60s, you know, instead of having a cup of coffee, you'd smoke a joint. I mean, you know, get up in the morning, smoke a joint. I mean, that's the way it was.
I know some people that do that now.
Yeah. No, I don't do that anymore. What are you talking about? Oh. Where I come from, it's illegal. So, of course, I don't do that. But so we're completely sober. But we're fucking around on the race, on the go-karts, going the wrong way and banging into each other. So they throw us out. Okay, so we come back to the place that we hang out. And, you know, I got my chopper sitting on the street. And the cops come. And you're like, "Oh, yeah. Hi, how you doing?" We're not holding. We're not loaded, nothing, right? And they're looking around. I said, whose motorcycle is this? And proudly, I say, it's mine. And he pulls out his handcuffs and says, I'm advising you of your constitutional rights. And I go, what the fuck did I do? You know, he found an old smashed tube of glue next to my motorcycle. And he said, you're sniffing glue. You're going to jail.
What?
Now, I don't know if you've ever smelled glue that you model airplanes. It's has a distinctive odor. And if you're sniffing glue, your whole face and mouth and everything smells like glue. Well, you know, so anyway, I go to jail, and I go before a judge. His name was Judge Hughes, Superior Court, and he hated all the lynchmen, which was, you know, he should have. We were assholes, and you know, and he knew them all. Every one of them. So I'm standing there, and they call me. Oh, before this, the public, I don't have an attorney. Public defender comes up to me and says, Bryan Renfro, yeah, you're arrested for sniffing glue. Look, you just cop to it, and I'll get you 10 days, you know. And I said, you know, I could do 10 days in county jail standing on my head. That's no big deal. But I'm on probation. If I cop to that, they're going to violate my probation. He stands up and says, well, I'm just trying to do something for somebody who's not worth it. And he walks away.
Whoa.
So now I have no representation whatsoever. So Judge Hughes, so they call my name. I stand before Judge Hughes. And he's going through, looking through the paperwork, you know. And I just say, okay. He raises his head up, and the veins in his head are bulging. His face is pure red. And I'm like, fuck, I haven't even said anything yet. And this, you know, he's ready to put me in the gas chamber. Well, behind me is another lynchman, an older guy who had probably held the Guinness Book of World Records for the most 180-day sentences, most by Judge Hughes.
Wow.
And he is sticking his head around watching me, and Judge Hughes sees him and says, blah, blah, whatever. I don't want to say his name, but he says what his name is and what are you doing here and stuff. And you know, he laughs and leaves, right? And then Judge Hughes takes it out on me. And he says, you have an attorney? No. Well, do you have your public defender? I said, well, no, he just shined me on. What is that, lynchman talk?
Oh, really?
Now he's really fucking pissed. And he says, I'm going to give you a different judge because I'm prejudiced against you. Beautiful. I turned around and left the courtroom with a big smile on my face. 2 nights later, 2 detectives come in my house, hook me up, and take me to jail. I appear before Judge Hughes, and he goes, 180 days. And wait, you can't give me any time. You just said you were prejudiced against me.
Wow. Yeah.
So I did my time and got out.
What the fuck?
Shout out to Judge Hughes.
Yeah.
But, you know, he was, I mean, I see his point. We were a bunch of just drug addict murderers and fighting and shit. And so I wouldn't have liked myself. And I look back at myself in those days, and I don't like who I was.
Right.
And one time, you know, I used to take a lot of narcotics, and I had a lot of pills. You can't even get these pills anymore, but rainbows and reds and yellows and blue heavens. And I used to keep them in a jar. And at one point, my mom and I were living in a little apartment building. I don't know where my brother was at the time. I was maybe 16, something like that. And, you know, my mom didn't have much of a family. We were really poor and shit. And I went into the bathroom in the morning and opened up, and I was, so am I going to take some reds or some yellows or some rainbows or blue heavens, which were fantastic. But anyway, I looked at myself in the mirror, and I was in junior high school. You know, I was very popular. You know, I was president of choir, and I was in a singing group, and I was
Wow.
very athletic and everything. And I looked at myself in the mirror, and I was really skinny and circles under my eyes and stuff. And I realized that I was taking the narcotics not to get high, but not to get sick. Because if I didn't take the narcotics, I got sick. And I dumped them down the toilet, flushed it. And that's how I started to get away from the narcotics.
It's an emotional
Wow,
moment.
man. Game changer.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't totally get it. Unfortunately, I didn't like heroin. I did it a couple times. Didn't like it. My thing was acid. I loved acid. So, but I've got a picture in here of Jim, Terry, and Phil, the buddies that I ran with. Phil died when I was in Vietnam from heroin overdose, and the other three died from heroin complications later on in life. And there's only one friend of mine that we still talk. He got out of that a long time ago. His wife got him out of it, the lady that he finally married, and they moved away. And he's the only one still left in that club or gang or whatever you want to call it. So we were pretty much like the 2% that make it out of that.
Wow.
So
What a story, man.
Yeah, good for you.
yeah,
How do you make someone nowadays who's in a situation like that see the future and see that there's a
You don't make
better
them.
place?
They have to make that decision.
Yeah.
You can't push them. I just met an officer. I was in this coffee shop that I visit quite frequently, and I had seen this police officer come back and forth, and I was wearing a hoodie, and it had the Army emblem on it. And the police officer came over and said, "You were in the Army?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Yeah, I was in the 82nd Airborne." And he had been now a cop for 27 years, and I think he had another few years to go. He was going to retire, And we got to talking, and I told him the story about me getting arrested, and the best thing that ever happened to me was getting arrested. And so we exchanged cards, and then we said our goodbyes and stuff, and he left, and I looked on the card, and he's chief of police.
Oh, is that right?
So that was cool.
That's fun.
But yeah, and like I say, when I started to write in here, and I wrote a little piece, but looking back, and I was sitting on a couch one night, and my wife and I were watching TV, and something will spark something that happened to me in the past, and something sparked it, and I was like, oh, and so I'm telling her yet another story, and my wife finally said, "Put this in a book.
Yeah.
You got to put these things in a book."
Yeah,
So
man.
I knew the hardest part would be remembering, not because of all the drugs and hitting my head on multiple occasions and being old. That had nothing to do with it. But I did have issues in remembering. And when I talked to the psychiatrist at the VA about the PTSD and stuff, I said, why why do I remember, like, for instance, when one of my best friends in Vietnam got killed. It was a rocket, and 5 of them in that platoon got killed. And I couldn't get to him till the next day. I was pulling his equipment off. His fingers broke, and his head came out in 3 pieces. And I said, it's like, why can I not remember what happened before and after? I only remember that, She said that's typical of trauma. That a lot of times you don't remember what, led up to it and what happened after that. You just remember that one thing.
Really?
Yeah. Well, I know as soon as that happened with the pulling off the equipment and stuff, my brain went numb. I couldn't think. Nothing,
Yeah.
Fuck. Yeah, crazy, man. Wow.
I got nothing.
Story of my life.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
So you've been to the Vietnam Wall. I know you have.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's gotta be tough.
Yeah, it is. And especially, what's really bad is, well, my first best friend in country, he was the point man, and there's my squad leader Kugler and I, and we were always in the point squad, and we were in very dense jungle, and it was the only time they ever made it a standing order that we wore our flak jackets, because they were 20 pounds and you're in mud and it's 100 degrees and 100 degrees humidity, and you just didn't want to wear them. They made us, and the jungle was so dense, like I wouldn't be able to see you. And the next thing, boom, and I ran into where he was. Nobody was moving because it was booby traps everywhere, right? And I didn't think. I just ran to him, and I'm Timble, where are you? And he said, I'm here, man. And I looked over, and he was blown into like this molt, and he had shrapnel all on his head, and his whole right foot was gone except for his big toe. And I'll never forget that. He had stepped on a grenade, tripped a grenade, And you don't remember so much what happens before that. I certainly don't remember what happened after that. I only remember that, And like I said, the lady psychiatrist was like, that's normal in trauma, So I don't even know why I got off on that story, but
No,
No, did you find writing the book was cathartic at all?
I don't know what that word means.
I'd like to.
Did I
Was
say
it-
I didn't graduate high school?
was it somewhat therapeutic? Did it?
Oh,
help?
that's why I
Did it
wrote
help?
that first story.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, as therapy for myself. Don't be using big words.
Right.
Listen, man. We'll give him shit later. Yeah.
Uh-oh. Yeah.
But yeah, no, yeah, and that's. I don't watch. I'll watch maybe in a war movie that's about World War II or something, but I won't watch Vietnam stuff. It's just a little too real,
Really?
And then plus I can't stand, how they do something like that, but they have to have it Hollywood drama.
Of course.
So you're walking now I walked through the jungle, and you're trying to be quiet. You're not arguing back and forth about some stupid shit, and then you get into a fight. You're trying to be as quiet as you can, which brings me to something that I thought a lot of during our exotic little marches in the, jungle. Somebody would be making noise, clanking, talking. And I thought, about 200 years ago, the British came over, banging on their drums, and we hid behind piles of hay, and picked them off. Now, 200 years later, here we are, making a bunch of noise, walking through the jungle, and they're shooting us. Did we not learn a fucking thing? I mean, really.
Yeah, totally.
No
Be
shit.
quiet. Well, yeah, I wouldn't. Why? Wow. Why would you want to make noise and talk?
Like I say, sometimes it got complacent.
I suppose yes, that's true.
Yeah.
When I
After a few days of silence, you kind of.
That's a pretty big word, complacent.
Yeah, I know. I learned that when I was writing the book. I was looking up something. What does that mean?
Thesaurus, yeah.
Like on a Tuesday. But you get that way.
Yeah.
You don't until something happens. And when I was carrying, I carried radio, I was an RTO, and they say the life expectancy of an RTO was 5 seconds because they want to shoot you. You know, they see you're carrying a radio. And I was carrying a radio, and 5 of us, we were in point squad, and we couldn't get over this mound, this big, small hill kind of thing. It was all elephant grass. And I don't know if you've ever been anywhere near that, but they're sharp, long things, and they're like a saw.
Really?
You can't walk through it. I mean, so we were walking around, and Mr. Viet Cong was decided at that point to test out his new AK-47 to see how it was working, and pinned us down. And in a rice paddy, we were in a rice paddy, and there was no place to hide. I mean, I went straight on my back when the gunfire started to happen, and our M60 gunner was going to help, and he tried to shoot, and he had put the piston in backwards, so we had a single shot M60 machine gun. So I remember our lieutenant, who was our platoon leader, platoon leader. He's yelling, "Run for the dike, run for the dike," because there's dikes every so often in a rice paddy, you know. And so all you're thinking is, you get up and you start running, you know, and get over that dike, and that's all you see is that dike. And trying to run through mud that's knee high, and you know, and like I say, I was about 138 pounds, with a radio, with a spare battery, and all your ammunition, everything. There's a lot of weight, you know, and you're sinking in this stuff. And you talk about cardio and motivation,
big time.
Yeah. And finally, when the one-sided gun battle was over, when I guess he decided the Kong guy decided to go off someplace, one of the guys in my company came up and said, "Wow, did you see all those bullets?" And I said, "What are you talking about?" He said, "As you were running, bullets were landing all around you. You didn't see them?" And I was like, "Fuck no, all I could see was that dike and getting over that dike, man."
Wow.
I was not a hero. I did not, I didn't go there to really kill anybody. I went there because I felt it would be the way I could save my life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I didn't go there to be a hero and to get up there. You know, I wasn't Audie Murphy. I wasn't going to stand there and, you know, I would fight and I'd do what I had to do, and I could take orders, and I'd be right up there with the guys. But that wasn't why I went there. I wasn't like to stop communism. I was there to you know, help my life and get out of my where I was.
You used the word decorated earlier. What's that mean?
Oh, 5 medals.
Okay.
And you used the word.
Just threw that off.
And I know it's not a big word, but
Yeah.
you used the word dike. I only got one. I only know one thing.
Yeah, and that's not it.
It's
And that's not it.
What is a dike? Seriously.
It's where it's a mound built up.
I don't even fucking know. He's
Sorry.
telling the story.
Okay, so I resisted making a joke as you're saying it. And like I'm thinking, you got all these soldiers running for a dike in the middle of a paddy. So I'm going, I'm not going to say anything. And so then you did.
Well, somebody had to say
Well,
it.
somebody had to say it. Yeah.
Come on.
No, it's a built up area that goes all the way across the rice paddy, and they can walk on that.
It's like a dam.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
And
but
that
it must have been freaky running up and over those things.
Well, no, we were pretty much always in the rice paddy.
Yeah. Okay.
But you know, but to get behind that, getting behind that was, you know, just trying to stay out of the gunfire.
I see.
So, you know, no, I have a CIB, which is a combat infantryman's badge.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be in combat for at least 35 days before you can earn that.
Is that the rifle?
Yeah.
The tattoo?
Yeah, I got that on my
it's
back.
on your back, brother.
Oh yeah, right, yeah. And I have 3 Army accommodation medals with V devices, and that means valor. And then I have a Bronze Star with valor
And
and an air medal.
And what'd you get the Bronze Star for?
I wrote in the book. Very interesting when I was leaving my company and everybody was going to Hawaii to play Army and I was staying there. The company clerk, they give you all your paperwork, your medical and all that stuff there, And I said, okay, see you later. I said, oh, wait a minute, there's something else came for you. And he pulls out this blue box. And, what's that? And I look in there and it's a Bronze Star with a V device. That was it. Usually when you get a medal, like when I got accommodation things and stuff, you stand there and the colonel comes down and pins it on you and salutes, all that shit. The Bronze Star was just like, oh yeah, here you go. See ya. I have a thing that says, may it be all known or somebody to whatever Bronze Star on such a date for heroism. And that's it. A date? I mean, there was only one date you looked at, and that was the date you were going home. You had no idea what day it was. You didn't care. I mean,
Right.
Was it Sunday? I'm going to watch football? No, I'm in a fucking jungle. So dates didn't really mean anything. I have no idea what,
I never thought of it that way. There's no reason to know or care what day it is.
No.
You lose all sense
Christmas.
of time.
I remember Christmas because we were, the Navy, we were on these ships, right? And the Navy, the regular Navy didn't really like us a lot because we're, combat soldiers and we're dirty and we got packages from home and pretty much every package had a fifth of whiskey in it of some sort. And you're not allowed to drink on the boats, right? And, we're combat and we're getting hammered, but it's only for like one day, right? And so the Navy, the regular Navy guys didn't really like us because, and everybody just turned a blind eye that we were drinking. So I have a picture somewhere of that I took of the little area on the ship where we were with a little bitty kind of Christmas tree and, some decorations and bottles of booze and shit, But
cool.
We would go out on these tango boats. And they were Navy, but they were volunteers to go to be in the tangos. And it was those smaller aircraft or boats that drop the ramp and you go out, you know.
Right.
And every night that we would, before it got dark, the boats would start to do racetrack and maneuver until it was dark. And the reason for that was the shore were relatively close on the Mekong Delta rivers and stuff. Well, they could mortar the boats. So we would do all these things and maneuver the ships around so they didn't know where we were because we wouldn't stop maneuvering until after it was dark and all the lights would be out and they didn't know where to mortar us, So when you have to do that, all these little boats that we got, the tango boats we called them, were all lined up on this big pier that was tied on the side of the ship. Well, to maneuver, all the tango boats would have to go out, and they would do racetrack stuff, and until the other ship the mothership got anchored, and then they would come back and tie up alongside. So these guys, since they were in combat, pretty much, they partied. So if you knew these people on some of the different tango boats and you were there, you would just get on a tango boat, and when they're doing racetrack, they're smoking pot and drinking, and it was a party, man.
That's good.
Right on.
It's good to have friends.
Yeah, and good to have good memories of some of this stuff.
That was very interesting. There's a picture in here actually when right after Timble had lost his foot and my squad leader got hit in the leg, and they both went, to the hospital. And my squad leader was he was back on the ship when we came in, when I guess we were in tango boats when they tied up and came back off the mission. And they always had 4 or 5 55-gallon drums full of ice and beer every time we'd come back off a mission. And I've got a picture of me and Kugler, and he's handing me a beer. He met me right, as soon as I got off, he was waiting for me, and that was cool.
Yeah, right on.
Brian?
That was cool.
Yes.
Yeah. Andrew said something about good memories. Yeah, I don't think I want to go there, but what are you doing now? Like, you're doing something now about movie dog training. I read about it.
Oh yeah, we have a course. There's a really good friend of mine, Joel Silverman, and he came to me around 1980 up at Universal Studios. He was a killer whale trainer, and very good at that, and a very good dolphin trainer. He wanted to learn domestics. And so I taught him how to train dogs, and he was already a trainer, so it
Sure.
really didn't take that.
He understands the concept.
Yeah. Now since then, he's written 5 or 6 books on dog training. He's had 2 different shows on Animal Planet that he produced and put together, and he does seminars, and he also does classes on people who want to learn how to train dogs and advanced training. And now, with Joel Silverman and myself, we are doing a course on movie dog training, film. So we teach you not only to help with the dogs and advanced training and everything, but we teach you everything about film. Who is a director? What does he do? What is your role with a director, with an assistant director? With the property master, they might have a picture, a certain collar they want your dog to wear or something. So we teach them everything on that. We teach them set etiquette. We teach them how to be on a film set. We teach them where you might have to stand and how you need to be at the blocking of a scene, and make sure that whatever the dog action is and where you need to be, you need to let the director of photography and the grips and everybody know where you need to be, so they don't put a big ass light behind you, because you're directing your dog and you're casting shadows everywhere. It's a 5-day course, and we teach, we teach everything. We really do, because Joel and I, of course, we've been in dog training for films for ever and a day.
Absolutely. Your resume is stellar. I mean, it's crazy why somebody wouldn't do this, but who's this directed to, Brian? Can anybody go and learn how to do
No, the criteria really is, it's for people who have taken Joel's advanced training. So these are people who are trainers from different walks of life.
Serious stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, and they've a lot of them own say daycare centers for dogs and do a little bit of training, and a lot of people who are really into dog training. And once they take his course and they learn more advanced training, that's when you can take our course. And we tell them, it's like they use dogs in films all the time, and these people are getting paid usually an average of $50 an hour with overtime. And then if it's your dog, they pay like maybe, I don't know, $200, $300 a day for rental on the dog. And so as a dog trainer on film, and if you're good, you can make a whole lot of money.
Right.
Well, I don't imagine there's a whole ton of you out there either.
Real good trainers, there's some people get jobs just like the stunt business. I mean, there's some people out there who aren't the greatest stunt people in the world, but they're working because they're working cheaper, and
True.
True. So and there's a market for it. I mean, our first class is going to be the last week of March, and that's I think we have 12 people, which is kind of the maximum for for one course, because we teach so much.
March of 2023, just so that if somebody's listening to this next year.
Yeah.
Okay, so now if somebody owned, let's say, like a daycare center for dogs, like you said, and they're into a bit of training, and they've taken advanced training courses for dogs who live in the private sector, for people who have dogs, that person can come out of interest, or is it just specifically for people that want to work in the film business?
Mostly that.
Okay.
But there are people who would, and they have the money to do it. They want to, that's really an interesting course. I might want to do that. There's a lot of people that we have met over the years who have, like, say, dog care centers and a little bit of training and stuff. And they have done a little bit of film work because a local production might come in there and they want a dog and they don't want to go to Hollywood and pay all that money.
That's interesting.
So they'll go to somebody like that and say, hey, look, can you get your dog to sit and stay and while they're doing this commercial about tampons or something. So, a lot of people have done some stuff like that. And once we started to do this course, they're like, wow, really? Yeah, and they're anxious to take it. And I love training. I love teaching. I've always loved teaching. And the best thing about Joel and I, we don't have egos. We've done a lot of stuff. We've trained a lot of dogs. We don't have any egos. I will teach you and tell you every single thing I know, and shortcuts and whatever.
Amazing.
Yeah, you've always been an incredibly giving person. That I know about you.
Ask my ex-wives.
You've given them everything.
I'm kidding.
Have you ever?
No, I'm kidding.
Have you ever thought about doing like a YouTube channel or something of the sort, where it kind of goes out to the masses at home,
Where you can
training
teach people
or
for
stuff
free,
like
Brian?
So
well,
what?
we don't.
Where you can teach them for free?
No, Joel has
No.
things.
Does he?
On his
Well,
on
if you
his
get
website,
millions of
but-
viewers, you end up getting paid. It's not.
Yeah, no, I'm
it's
kidding,
not
but-
like.
I know, and
Yeah,
I
don't know. I don't know.
no, and it's a great idea. I'm just a lazy fuck and haven't done anything, and so there you go.
Yeah, well, if life is good, who gives a shit?
Yeah, brother.
You know.
You know.
I just wondered. Yeah.
Yeah,
you know,
but I
there's-
mean, great idea.
I tried to. Okay, so our last dog did nothing.
And same with the dog before that.
That's true, but no,
the
but the dog before that,
she did a few things.
she did a
Yes,
few things.
did.
She could sit.
Yeah.
I trained her. I would point my finger at her and say "bang," and she'd fall over dead. And
Yeah.
then she got to the point where she would run across the backyard like lickety split, and I'd go bang, and she'd fall over on her side.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
she-
that's great.
and it was awesome. Her
But it
name
w-
was Brody, which is a stunt term, right?
Yeah,
for
sure.
fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was brodying every time. you
Yeah,
did it.
she was brilliant, but she was named Brody for that reason. We did that, but so there are people out there that want to train their dogs. What I don't even know where I was going with that, but of all the dogs that you've trained, do you call them makes? What do you call it? Species?
Type of dog.
It's not
Yeah, I don't
species.
know.
What type of dog?
breeds and
Breed.
yeah.
That's the word I'm looking for.
I had, when I did the TV series back in the 80s called Here's Boomer, he was a mutt that you can't even find in a dog pound anymore. But he was, 57 varieties of dog, just all put together, long hair and all that. And then one of the last dogs that you might have known, Casey. I don't know if you knew who Casey was. Or
I
not.
do.
He was a Border Collie Australian Shepherd, two amazingly intelligent dog breeds. And I noticed while I was working up here doing stunts that there weren't a lot of quality dog trainers. And I only knew how to train dogs to a certain level because I had been around the best and had learned from them. So I thought, well, I think I'm going to get a dog, and because I was doing a lot of stunt work, but I thought, it wouldn't hurt to have a well-trained dog, and I'd get a show and, make $1,000 a day. And that's what I was doing. So I went out, I started looking at papers, and I found this these puppies in Stratford. So I drove I was living in Pickering at the time, so I drove all the way out there, and I go to walk in the house, and border collies and dogs all over the place. And right away, one of them came up and bit me in the leg. And so I motored on back there, and they showed me, and there were these litter of puppies. And I went, wow, they were just so beautiful. And there were two of them that really looked alike, and I didn't get both of them. I only got the one. But I trained Casey up, and I think the first thing he worked on was a year after I got him. I got him at 6 weeks old, and I started training him right away, but not heavy training. And the one thing that I really iterate with trainers, and people want to do that, the first thing you do, and the most important thing you do, is build a bond with your dog. Build that bond. Be close to him. And Casey was, he was, my pet. Slept with me, we did everything together, and he was my partner in work, but we had just such a great bond, and then, so I got him all trained up, and I started working him on different shows, and, he worked out really well.
And you used to have like a little demo video with him, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually remember seeing it, I think.
Really?
Years and years and years ago.
Yeah.
Many years ago.
As a matter of fact, the old house that I had,
way long time ago.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I did have that video, and I did show you. I remember.
I'm way younger than you guys.
Yeah. We shot it with one of those cameras that you go like this. As a matter of fact, I mean, you started your career a long time ago. I think it was first thing you did was Gone with the Wind or something, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was pretty close to Gone with the Wind. Yeah. I came up with the line, "I don't give a damn."
But I totally remember this video.
I got to tell, I was doing this in that video. I wanted Casey to jump up and push me down the stairs. And the house that I owned, the stairs went down like this and stopped. There was a wall there, and then there was 3 steps this way, So I had Casey hit me, and I did a backfall down the stairs, went right through the fucking wall.
Yeah, it's great.
That's awesome.
It's always good to do that at your own house.
So after you've created a bond with the dog, what would a homeowner want to do with their dog? What's the first thing you start training a dog?
I tell people all the time, how do I stop him from doing this? How do I stop?
Yeah.
Teach your dog to lie down and stay. That's all you have to do. Teach him to lie down and stay. Teach him to sit and stay. He's doing this and he's bothering you. Come on, lie down, stay. Just relax. Stay there. Okay, now you can get up. You keep pawing me and doing that stuff again. Lie down, stay. You don't need to be doing that. Just relax, So a lot of people, if they just teach their dog to sit and stay and lie down and stay, they'd alleviate a lot of problems that they're going to have in the future. But, if you want to teach your dog, fun things, like you were saying, bang, and he falls over, or to sit up and, or to take a bow and back up and
do
retrieve and all those things, I mean, you can have
laundry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can get a beer.
Seen Casey mailed a letter.
Yeah, mail a letter.
VHS tape in the machine.
That's what I remember.
Yeah,
I remember that.
Letter never went anywhere, but,
But patience, do you ever yell at your dog? There's people that yell at their dogs.
Oh, I'm sure at some point it would be like, what the fuck are you doing? But I always made fun, especially in the live shows, because, especially when you're doing a lot of shows, something's going to mess up. And I loved it, especially when the dog did something that messed up a little bit in the live show. And the problem most people have as a performer, and you're doing something, and the dog messes up, they get real upset, and it's like, oh man, the dog messed up, and the audience sees this. And I was so good at the live show because I wasn't the trainer up on the stage with the dog. I was friends in the audience. I was friends with the audience, and I was friends with the animals. And they could tell that. They could tell I really loved him. So when the dog would screw up a little bit, it's like, I would make jokes. And
Sure.
and it would be like, hey, that was really clever. However, that wasn't a trick. So now, would you like to do it the right way? And so the whole entire audience is not on edge because, oh shit, what's he going to do because the dog screwed up? It's like, wow, he's having fun with it. Oh, okay, all the tension's gone and everything.
Absolutely.
And I would do that constantly. And the one thing that I'm teaching people to do the live show, there's certain jokes for the show that you're almost always going to say for one situation or another. However, you don't say a joke if it doesn't come up. You don't just throw a joke in because it's a joke.
Well,
I never
like
did that.
Dyke comment.
The what?
The Dyke comment.
Oh yeah.
My apologies.
No, that was very tasteful.
Well, I'm not sure. So hey, speaking
And
of
what his address and just send all the letters to him.
speaking of live shows, you're the only one of the three of us that's ever been on Johnny Carson.
Well, that's true.
What was that like? Just hanging out.
It was. I had done the Johnny Carson show twice before,
Okay.
but had never really been with Johnny Carson. Like one time, we had a cat doing different things, but this time when the TV series Here's Boomer was out, and Johnny Carson had said the night before that the Boomer series had been canceled, and it hadn't. So, and I didn't know that because I didn't watch the show. So anyway, I'm up at Universal, and I get a call from the Carson show. Can you bring Boomer down to do the show? And I'm like, yeah, sure. Because they would shoot it, like 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon and then show it that night. So, okay. So I'm walking and I don't really know what's going on. Well, Johnny Carson wants to publicly apologize to Boomer for saying he got canceled.
That's a great stick.
Yeah. And so I walk in and, Joe PA, whoever he is, and he says, and Johnny Carson walks up and says, hi, I'm Johnny Carson. And I'm like, who?
Man.
Yeah. And so I like to joke around and shit.
Right.
And anyway, so Carson says, I'm going to give him some gifts and, like a Gucci slipper and, just things for, and he says, just have fun with it. And I'm like, okay, you're talking to the wrong guy because I'm not afraid to have fun. And what I did was I cut up on the way. I got some hot dogs and cut up little bits of hot dogs to work Johnny with. Boomer's real name was Johnny, and I never called him Boomer on the show. I always called him Johnny because that was his name, and that's the way I trained him.
Oh wow!
So Carson was interviewing me about some of the, and I wanted to work the dog for him. So. Carson was at a desk and the main chair the dog was in. So I got on the other side of Carson to work the dog, and the seat at the very end, I wanted him to sit up and the seat was very cushy. He was having a hard time sitting up, and I'm like, Johnny, sit up. I got a little, so
I saw
he
that
sits
coming.
up and I get I got some hot dog in my hand and I pay my dog, Johnny, and I notice Carson is like this. So I shoved a bite of hot dog in his mouth. And I'm almost positive he was like, what was that, a lewd? And, because Quaaludes back in the day, and then the band was cracking up and all that. And then Shelley Winters, she was pissed off because I was the first one out. She was supposed to be the first one out there. And So she comes and sits down in the chair right on my dog. And why he didn't bite, because he was that kind of dog. He was a dog pound dog. And he got in a lot of fights. And why he didn't bite her is beyond me, but he didn't. So, we pretty much said our, shake hands and said goodbye and see you later.
Wow, that's hilarious. So Carson also got a hot dog.
Well, he didn't want
fucking
one.
hilarious.
I just shoved it in his mouth.
He said, "Have fun with it."
Yeah.
And you know, it's funny because I was
great.
working on Here's Boomer the very next day. And it's not like nowadays where everybody and their brother has a talk show and it's no big deal to be on a talk show.
Yeah, there's
Johnny
tons of
Carson
podcasts
was-
and stuff.
Yeah.
Way up there. There was nobody
That's right.
other than Johnny Carson.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And after that, so I go to work the next day, and actors are coming up to me going, "I saw you on a Carson show. You weren't nervous at all. I'd have been, and I'm going, "Look." Yeah, an old drug addict gang member, and that was pretty good.
Man, that is a wild experience. It's so
Okay,
cool.
so speaking of former drug addict gang member going to jail, how the hell did you get into training President Bush, the original's dog?
Oh, I didn't train his dog.
Oh, you didn't?
No, that picture you're talking about.
Yeah.
And it wasn't. He wasn't. He was vice president.
Oh, then never mind then.
At the time, but I was doing a tour with Benji,
Okay.
and they wanted to. Barbara, his wife, had a dog, so they wanted Benji and her dog to meet. So they took us to the White House or someplace like that, and you have to go through all the security things and all that stuff, and so I was sitting there with the picture, and Bush came in and kind of squatted down and took the picture with us, and he said, "Yeah, I'm late for the baseball game," because he played a lot of baseball, and oh man, I was like, "Can I play too?" I didn't want, and I thought, no, I better not ask that, because, but I really wanted to play ball with him. I thought that would be so cool.
Yeah, it would have been.
Yeah, but anyway, I was on tour and doing that. But that's what
I know the
picture's
picture
for.
very well. Okay, cool. That's awesome.
But yeah, no, I didn't train their dog.
What a wild life, man.
Yeah.
You've had a wild life.
Yeah, that's that's why I did this.
No, it's great. Show the people the book again.
Oh yeah, so.
Bring it this way. I don't know what the frame is. Hard work and dumb luck. That's Bryan moving.
Yeah, and it's like you can start on any chapter
Absolutely.
because it's all mixed up.
That's what I love about the book, is because I've read a great deal of it. I can't say I read the whole thing, but what I do is I pick up and I open it anywhere. And if I've read that particular section, I move to the next piece. Mm-hmm. And so it's all stories.
Well, congratulations
nicely.
that you read a book. I think
Yeah.
Well, there's no big words apparently.
any book. I'm happy you did that.
Hey, man, and while we've got it here, because that's my copy, there's a pen. Can you sign it?
Yeah. What name should I put?
Random Butcher.
It'll be more money if it's not to made somebody, but yeah. Thanks, Bryan. And just so people know, I mean, we've known each other forever, and one of my favorite people, and I'm so happy. People don't realize. Thank you, sir. People don't realize that.
Oh, it's your pen.
Thank God you don't have a pocket in that shirt. This particular podcast with you, Bryan, has been almost 3 years in the making.
Really?
We talked about it before COVID.
Oh yeah.
We wanted to get here. You weren't here. You were in North Carolina, and we couldn't. I couldn't get to you. You couldn't get to me, and now it's somewhat over.
Yeah.
You're here.
Yeah. And now that I'm on a work furlough, and I can get up here.
Yeah.
I'm no longer in the protection program, and
And I mean, it's also a pleasure for me to sit here and listen to what you have to say. It's incredible stuff.
Oh well,
man.
thank you for coming. I mean, that's you two guys. It's so nice for you to say things like that to me, because a lot of people could say that, but coming from you guys, that means a lot. I mean, it really means a lot. So thank you.
That's just true,
You're
man.
welcome, man. If experience is life, you're winning, man. It's
Oh,
crazy.
Well, that's really
Crazy.
nice. Thank you. Yeah.
Hey, give him
Oh
that.
yeah. Hey, Bryan, please.
Well,
Before
Sign
we
our table.
exit this
Oh.
podcast, please sign our table.
You
You
can
can
move
sign anywhere you
swing
want.
the mic around and reach up here, pick a place that's open,
Or wherever.
and feel free to draw a photograph. Draw a photograph.
No, this.
I can't draw.
But there's a lot of space here.
Yeah, there's a lot of space over here, up there, anywhere.
Wow, who did that?
Oh, that's Mariah.
Mariah
Mariah
Owen.
Owen.
She's an incredibly prolific producer. Really, really interesting lady.
Wow, that is okay.
And clearly, she's an artist.
Yeah.
Let's see.
It's a good
To
time.
good times. Scratch, scratch, scratch. That's all they hear.
It's a good friends. Love it.
Thanks, Brian. It's a book, ladies and gentlemen. He's writing a second volume.
So,
And to those who never made it home.
Thanks, man.
Fucking A.
Jesus. Brian, thanks for coming and sharing your life with us, brother.
oh, my pleasure. My pleasure. You know, and give me a day.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I'll call you. You come up. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, this one, Hard Work and Dumb Luck, Bryan Renfro, Amazon. I'll put it up.
Thank you, Brian.
It's fun. It's a fun read.
Thank you.
Thank you, brother.
Oh, my pleasure. Are you kidding?
Yeah,
So
no, it was
good.
amazing. Our pleasure. It's incredible.
I
Thank you.
could go on for hours,
Yeah.
but we
Oh,
won't. We'll
yeah.
wait till it's over, then we'll keep going.
Yeah, you get me talking, and it's hard to shut me up.
No, I love it.
It's the
Anyway,
best part.
So, are we still on air?
we are.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're about to be off, so
Yeah. Thanks for watching. Cut it, D.